jack it up.
Hurts keeps, Hurts cuts, Hurts has the first down, and Jalen Hurts might have just put it away for the Eagles. Touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey and the Sixers are going to win this game. Joel, tough turnaround in the lane. Another 30-10 performance for Joel Embiid.
Hurts connects with Devontae Smith.
Hello and welcome back to 2 and 5 Scoop in possibly our most depressing rendition of Eagles coverage. Obviously, this past Sunday was Super Bowl. Eagles lost 38-35 to the Chiefs. This marks the third championship lost by a Philly professional sports team in 99 days. November 5th, both the Philadelphia Union, the soccer team, and the Philadelphia Phillies, the baseball team, lost their championships, and then obviously on Sunday was the Eagles. Brief overview of some of the stats from Sunday. Jalen had probably the game of his career. He went 27 for 38, 304 yards with a passing touchdown. Obviously, that one touchdown to A.J. Brown. Then he had 15 carries for 70 yards, most by a quarterback in a Super Bowl ever, and then 3 rushing touchdowns, which is also most by a quarterback in a Super Bowl ever. So
it's also tied for the most by any player.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just start off with the big question. What the hell went wrong? What went wrong? Some of the things that come to mind for me are the obviously Jalen Hurts kind of dropping the ball, and that led to a Chiefs touchdown. Yeah. And then there was the punt return by what the hell's his name?
Kadarius Toney.
Yeah. The long punt return that. It was an absolute line drive. Reminded me of the Miracle at the Meadowlands with Deshaun Jackson, the Giants. Kind of like it reminded me of like that kind of crappy punt.
Very difficult to cover that as the punt coverage team.
Yeah, exactly. So like what went wrong after watching the game and looking back? Like after taking a few days just to get over the actual pain of the loss and just like looking at it, what went wrong for the Eagles in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to point to that Jalen fumble. Obviously, very much a momentum shifter there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did score on the ensuing drive, the ensuing possession after that touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, in the first half, the Eagles' offense was just blazing. We were getting whatever we wanted on the ground, in the air. So, I mean, you can't help but get the feeling that we would have gone up 21-7 on that drive instead of having to score the next drive and going up 21-14, which against a great team like the Kansas City Chiefs is most likely the difference in that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think looking back, that's definitely the difference. Momentum-wise, that definitely wasn't the key. I think momentum-wise, when everything kind of flipped, was that long punt return.
Yeah.
I think things just kind of flipped. The Eagles had a crappy drive, obviously had the punt for only I think it was their first or second punt of the game, and ultimately led to like a 60-yard return, and they had the ball in the red zone within the 10-yard line, and obviously they scored. Outside of that, let's just talk about obviously the very controversial call that ended the Eagles season. The Eagles should have gotten an extra minute if it weren't for that call, but it was the holding call on James Bradbury. Obviously, on Monday or Sunday night, he came out immediately and said, yeah, I did snag his jersey a little bit. I was hoping the refs would let it slide, given that it was inside 2 minutes of the game. Just like thoughts on that. I mean, looking at that play, it was within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So it does make me think that that's a league. Like, I think that's legal. Like, you can make contact within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So, like, that's what makes me think that this call was wrong. I mean, I'm not saying it out of spite because there were a lot of other factors that went into the Eagles losing this game. It wasn't just that call.
Yeah, absolutely. You hate pointing to any specific play and saying, oh, we would have won if it wasn't for this. Because you put in an Eagles offense that was kind of sputtering towards the end of the second half.
Yeah.
You said that first punt came probably towards the end of the third quarter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were really getting whatever we wanted up until, like, the fourth quarter. So, I mean, no guarantee that we even would have scored off that drive.
Right, exactly.
And there's so many things that went wrong before that. Anytime you blow a 10-point lead in the second half, I think the thing outside of the one play with the Jalen fumble was the pass defense just really let us down.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs really exposed our pass defense. I mean, I was trying to, like a lot of the big analysis on TV, we're all kind of trying to say the same thing, how the Eagles defense hasn't really faced an offense as dynamic as Kansas City. And we touched on this last week.
Yep.
And how facing an offense like the Chiefs, we could definitely get exploited. And that ultimately is exactly what happened. But overall, I mean, I think this is a performance that Eagles fans everywhere should be proud of. Although it wasn't the outcome we wanted, I think there's a lot to look forward to, especially with Jalen Hurts in terms of him. We all know what his personality is and the way he faces adversity. So we can only expect that he comes back, better than ever next year to avenge, what he just went through. And obviously, of course, he just had the game of his life. So lots to look forward there. I think that we have a very bright future in Jalen Hurts. But looking forward to this offseason, lots of changes are going to be coming. Eagles have about 12 free agents on this team. So Howie's a lot of work to do this offseason to keep, this team together. So let me just name off all the names. We got James Bradbury, Fletcher Cox, Andre Dillard, TJ Edwards, Marcus Epps, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Brandon Graham, Javon Hargrave, Linval Joseph, Jason Kelsey, Miles Sanders, and Boston Scott. It's a heck of a list.
Yeah.
Now, the Eagles obviously had to pay Jalen Hurts big money this offseason. He's eligible for a contract, and he deserves a contract. So after they spend that money on Jalen, the big question is how much money is going to be left to keep these players together? And also, Howie's a lot of thinking to do because he also has two first-round picks. We have the 10th pick and the 31st pick, or the 30th. So the 30th or 31st?
30th, because the Dolphins pick was forfeited.
Yeah, so we have the 10th pick and the 30th pick. So we have those two first-rounders to possibly replace some of these players. But looking at all these possible losses, was this the Eagles' best chance at a championship?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that is so interesting about the NFL in terms of a championship window is you really have the best chance when your quarterback is still on their rookie contract. Because right now, Jalen is making second-round pick. I believe he's making around $3 to $5 million a year. So just incredible value there. And he's going to get the contract he deserves. He's probably going to get paid around $35 to $45 million this year. That's a huge pay increase. That's so much less money that can be going to other pieces. And I mean, it's the kind of thing that when you're paying your quarterback like that, you can't make a trade for AJ Brown and then sign him to a huge extension. Like that's just not in the cards anymore. Right. We've already done that while Jalen was on the rookie contract. So luckily, but now there's guys like James, like you named, James Bradbury is going to get a huge. I think he's making $1 or $2 million this year.
Yeah,
he deserves a huge pay increase. CJ, and Epps are both making under $1 million. They're due for huge pay increases as well. And to sign all those guys at their market value is just not financially possible for the Eagles anymore.
Yeah, and that's I trust Howie. He's always managed to, manipulate the cap. I believe there's a cap raise this offseason, if I'm not mistaken. Is there a cap raise?
I'm not sure.
All right. Well, I mean, I think I read something about that, but just like I'm looking at this list. Some of the players that I really want to prioritize is I definitely want to sign back CJ Gardner-Johnson.
Yep.
I would let Epps go. I would sign TJ Edwards.
Yeah.
I think we let James Bradbury walk and possibly use that 10th pick on another corner in the draft. Looking at some of these players, who are some of the players that you really want the Eagles to prioritize this offseason?
Well, one name that I think you might have missed, Isaac Seumalo.
Oh, Isaac Seumalo.
Also a free agent this year. In my opinion, the most underrated Eagle this season. with that star-studded offensive line, I feel like his name gets lost, and
Mhm.
he was pretty easily a top 10 guard in the NFL this year. I think every player on the Eagles earned a huge contract increase this year,
Mhm.
whether that be with us or whether that be with another team. I think Sam Malu is a guy where I don't want to have to look in the draft or in free agency for another guard, because
Mhm.
we've seen teams, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Chiefs, we've seen teams that have had difficulty finding solid offensive line players in free agency in the draft to
Mhm.
protect their star quarterback.
Mhm.
And we have Sam Malo on the team right now. I don't want to lose him.
Yeah, and honestly, offensive line. I mean, obviously we're looking at Jason Kelsey too. Lane Johnson also is going to be coming back from that surgery. So like, we're looking at. I think we really need to prioritize the trenches, especially
Yeah.
on the offensive side. Defensive line, I'm not that concerned about, given that like if we don't bring back Fletcher Cox, that's okay. He wasn't that big of a contributor, and we have Jordan Davis sitting there as a replacement. Arguably, could be better. Granted, given he stays healthy. But I mean, I definitely want to prioritize the offensive line, keep that in front of Jalen, and then just work on the secondary. James Bradbury, I don't really think that's feasible at this point. I think he's gonna walk. He'll probably go somewhere like New Orleans or maybe Oakland, not Oakland. I'm sorry, Las Vegas. So somewhere that needs him. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. And then also another thing we have to note is the departure of both of our coordinators, Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon is now over with Arizona, and Shane Steichen is now with the Colts.
Yeah.
The Colts, I don't know, they just have like this thing with taking our offensive coordinators for some reason.
Yeah.
Like
Specifically after the Super Bowl.
they want to BS or something. I don't know. How'd that work out for the Colts last time? So
It's funny that we also signed Sirianni off the Colts staff. So it's like,
yeah.
anytime like one of our teams overachieves, we snag the best offensive play caller from the other team.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
we made the improvement, like, I
and
think,
I believe they've already resolved their offensive coordinator position. I believe the quarterback's coach for the
Oh.
Eagles is now going to be the offensive coordinator. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Do you know what the name is?
I don't. That's actually news to me.
Yeah, that is news. They actually I don't know what the Eagles announced, but I know Adam Schefter announced. Let me look it up. Eagles' new offensive coordinator.
And while you're looking that up, I have a couple like easy replacements for this free agents listed.
Yeah, I have the name. His name is Brian Johnson.
Brian
Jalen is a huge fan of Brian. Obviously, quarterbacks coaches are obviously very tight. So from what I read some yesterday. That's when the news kind of came out. I read some and it was like really positive. So I think we're in good hands with the offensive coordinator. Plus, I think Nick Sirianni does a lot of the offensive stuff anyway. But as far as defensive coordinator, some of the candidates that were mentioned, one big name was Lovie Smith, who just had his 1-year stint with the Texans. Obviously, did not fare out well, but before that, he was a defensive coordinator for the who was he with before?
Was he with the Buccaneers?
I believe he was the Buccaneers.
He was. He was the Bears coach for a stretch where their defense was very, very good.
And also he also took them to the Super Bowl, and they lost against the Colts.
But yeah, I mean, definitely one of the better, more experienced defensive minds in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's getting up there. I think he's in his mid-60s now, so he's been in the league for a while.
Oh yeah, I think he's been coaching for like 30 years now, or something like that.
Definitely a guy that I would not mind having control over the defense.
Yeah, and also, we never covered this last week, but they also brought in Vic Fangio. They signed him to a temporary contract to help the Eagles offense. I'm sorry, the Eagles defense deal with the Chiefs offense.
Yeah,
obviously it didn't work out, but I thought that was an interesting.
I know
now with the Dolphins though.
Yeah, right. He was getting a lot of defensive coordinator buzz. I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a name last year when John Gannon was a name he was a candidate for a lot of teams for head coach.
Yeah.
So yeah, but a lot obviously I mean, looking at all this, there's a lot of change that's coming to this organization, especially this offseason. There's a lot of work that Howie has to put in. Now, obviously, after last offseason, I have a lot of trust in Howie, and I think he can make all this. He can make the smartest moves. Hopefully, he doesn't, get too in over his head, because we know what he did after the last Super Bowl run. That he just made dumb decisions, tried being too smart. So just gotta trust him. And then, I think Eagles fans, we all have something to look forward to. As long as Jalen Hurts is our quarterback, we definitely are in a position to succeed.
Yes.
Jalen Hurts is a natural leader. He can get this team motivated. Really brings the underdog mentality to this Philadelphia team, regardless of who's on it. So yeah, I mean, it definitely stings, looking at this list because there's a lot of key players on all these with all these free agents that could be leaving. Obviously, Jason Kelsey, biggest name. Have you heard any word on his retirement?
I haven't. It always feels like it's like for the past ever since the last Super Bowl, it felt like that offseason was going to be the year,
Mm-hmm.
and then he always just manages to come back. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
the good thing about Kelsey is that he's not signing with another team. He's either
Mhm.
coming back to the Eagles for whatever contract we're willing to give him,
Mhm.
or he's retired.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, either way, I think. I mean, I haven't really looked at the scouts. I haven't looked at any like replacements for Jason Kelsey. I don't know if we can slide anybody over to center.
Well, we have Cam Jurgens.
We do have Cam Jurgens, and he's not bad. I don't think, right?
No, and he could play. So if Sam Malu happens to leave, Jurgens is a guy that could slide in at guard or center, depending on. We only have one. Jurgens is the only really like starting capable backup that we have on the roster right now.
Mhm.
So if Sam Malu also leaves, we're gonna have to bring in another offensive lineman.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
a couple other easy replacements. You mentioned Jordan Davis for Fletcher Cox.
Mhm.
Hargrave is also a free agent, so we just got to hope that both those guys don't leave.
Mhm.
We have Derek Barnett if Brandon Graham should leave.
Mhm.
And then in that case, of course, we would need to bring in some more.
Derek Barnett's still on the team. I forgot he was on the
Yeah,
team.
well, he was hurt all this year.
Oh, he was. I forgot. I completely forgot about him.
Yeah, but so if Graham ends up costing more than the Eagles are willing to pay him, and he has 30, well, he's 34 at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and he probably earned himself another 2-3 year contract for 10+ mil a year, maybe something the Eagles aren't willing to give. But Derek Barnett could slide into that
Right.
starting spot, and then we'd end up needing to bring in some sort of rotational piece on the defensive line either way.
We'll see. I mean, the Eagles have historical success in terms of building up the trenches. So I think
Yes.
I have trust. There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Mhm.
But one more question regarding the Eagle stuff, and then I want to get into some drama on Twitter that went on Valentine's Day on Tuesday. We'll get into that in a minute. But first, how soon do you think the Eagles are able to make it back to the bowl? Like, if I were to give a range, I would say probably we have the next few years. I think that's
Yep.
our window. Within the next few years, I think we'll make another trip.
I mean, in my mind, you really can't overstate how important it is to have the franchise guy on the team. I think as
Mhm.
long as Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of this team, that's when the Super Bowl window is.
Mhm.
He's only 24.
Mhm.
I mean, and granted, let's say running quarterbacks' legs generally give out on them early 30s. We have another at least 8 years of Jalen Hurts being in his prime.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at like the modern age Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
If you think back to 2012, 2013, when he was leading that Seahawks, the Seahawks almost dynasty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say he's somewhere in between Wilson and then sort of Michael Vick towards the tail end, like the Eagles side of his career.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a hybrid between those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a beautiful mix, honestly.
Yeah,
He's got.
fun to watch.
I think he's starting to develop the arm of Michael Vick a little bit. I mean, he's never going to be as strong. He's not going to be able to just chuck the ball, with a flick of the wrist.
Yeah, 60 yards.
60 yards down the field. He's not going to be that. But I mean, we can't not recognize the leaps he has made this season as a quarterback. especially for this team. And think about it. This time last year, we were talking about Jalen Hurts. Is he the quarterback to this team? And a year later, unfortunately, he was on the losing side, but he took us to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And
definite yes to that question.
It's a definite yes. And even Patrick Mahomes, after the Super Bowl, declared his respect, made his respect known for Jalen Hurts. His quote was, "If there are any doubters left, there shouldn't be any more."
Yeah.
Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is giving respect to Jalen Hurts for his career game in the Super Bowl. So yeah, very, very interesting. Now on to some of the drama that went on Valentine's Day. Juju Smith-Schuster, who was probably the most mediocre receiver in the league, decided it was the best idea to talk some smack after winning a ring. So he posted, obviously, NFL memes. NFL memes, how they do like those Valentines every year.
Yeah.
So he took one of those, and it was a picture of James Bradbury, and the caption was, "I'll hold you when it matters most." So, like, very, very personal, very, very, like, it's way too soon. This is not even 2 days after the play.
That's salt in the wound.
So absolutely, like, rubbing salt in the wound for James Bradbury. I mean, you can't imagine how you might feel right now. But don't worry, the Eagles players rallied around James Bradbury and kind of stood up for him. AJ Brown was definitely the most notable response, and he responded. He retweeted Juju's tweet. By the way, Juju captioned it, "Happy Valentine's Day, everybody," with the heart. So very, like, condescending, just being an asshole. So AJ Smith. AJ Brown responds with, "First off, congratulations. Y'all deserve it. And this is lame. You was on the way out the league before Mahomes resurrected your career on your 1-year deal, TikTok boy. He admitted that he grabbed you, but don't act like you're like that or ever was. But congratulations again."
Yeah.
That was probably the most respectful insult I've ever read.
I like that it's like a compliment sandwich, like the congrats on each side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then
it is.
It's absolutely dunks on him in the middle.
It's congrats, F you, congrats.
Yeah.
So that was like, it made me happy, looking at that and reading that entire conversation, because after that, Juju played victim and he was like, "All right, like I don't even know what he said. I didn't even bother.
I didn't even know he responded.
Yeah, he responded. Who knows, man? But yeah, that was funny. So I just wanted to run through that. So AJ Brown, once again, clutch on and off the field.
Yeah. Juju, I mean, I feel like he got a lot of hate while he was in Pittsburgh, which I never really understood. Like, the TikTok dances were annoying.
He did put that Corvette on the Bengals logo.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's a snotty guy. I mean, he played with Antonio Brown. I bet you little Antonio Brown's drama rubbed off on him, because Juju was a youngster. He was coming into the league. He didn't know, like, how to act as a professional football player, and I think he learned from the wrong guy.
Yeah. And he had one good season while AB was still there. I remember Juju had about 1,300 yards.
Yeah.
And it really just seems like he never reached that level again.
Yeah. He's only had one 1,000-yard season, and he's never had a season where he's caught 10 or more touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then also another Eagle player flocking to defend James Bradbury. CJ Gardner-Johnson said, "I had more interceptions this year than this guy had touchdowns." So, I really don't think Juju has much room to talk. I mean, I don't remember him being that much of a role player. The Chiefs' offense was ran by Pacheco. That's really all I remember. Maybe Juju had a few plays, but like, man. Man, I think that should wrap us up for today. I mean, that's really a really depressing episode, honestly. I'm still feeling the pain of loss right now. Just sucking up because we gotta record something. So, but Asher, do you have any last thoughts?
No, just that the that is not like the end of the Eagles as we know them. I
Mhm.
truly believe that we will be back to the Super Bowl in the next couple of years. I mean, I
Mhm.
think this team, the past 2 seasons since Nick Sirianni has been coach, we overachieved and we made the playoffs in 2021. We overachieved, we made the Super Bowl in 2022.
Mhm.
Now the league knows what this team is.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think that we will continue to be, one of the top contenders in the league for at least the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I think we're probably looking at. I mean, obviously, next year the Eagles have the strongest schedule in the league. They have the hardest schedule in the league.
Yeah.
So, next year is going to be interesting with a different team, different coordinators. Hopefully, we don't see much of a hangover, but with Jalen at quarterback, I don't really doubt that we will see a hangover. I think we're still probably not 11 or 12 win team, but we'll go into that a
Yeah,
little
plenty
bit
of
more
time
in
for that.
the offseason. We got plenty of time. We got now 6 months without
6 months
football.
till football.
6 months
Start
till
checking off the
football,
calendar.
so you guys can expect some more Sixers content as that season is beginning to ramp up a little bit. Speaking of, I just read an article saying that the Sixers could very well win the Eastern Conference just based on how James Harden and Joel Embiid are playing right now. Last night they beat the Cavs, moving on to I believe a 38-19 record, still third in the East, only 2 games back of the conference leading Celtics.
Yep.
But we will be coming out with more content regarding the Sixers and kind of following their season and crossing our fingers to see if another Philly sports team can make a championship. So
Yeah.
lots to look forward to. Phillies is coming up. I know we didn't really cover that, but that's in 2 months, so that's exciting for me. So yeah, but thank you guys for listening and tuning in every week during the course of the season. It's been a fantastic year, really a hell of a ride. Probably one of the most dominant years I've witnessed as an Eagles fan. So awesome. We will be back next year. Obviously, podcasts will still be going on, but as far as consistent Eagles content for the time being, fortunately, it's coming to a close with the season also coming to a close. So once again, thank you guys for tuning in all year for Eagle stuff. Sixers content coming. Make sure to just give us a follow on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at 215 Scoop or at 215 Scoop PSM. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You know the deal. And for the last time of the 2022-2023 season, what do we say, Asher?
Say go Birds.
Go Birds.
See you guys.
See ya.